On today's episode, we are going to explore the topic of funeral attire. What's in, what's out.
What do you wear? What don't you wear to a funeral?
I don't know. Let's think. Let's talk. Who knows? Maybe just shorts and a pair of...
Why don't we talk about what we
know
should
what?
wear?
What about Crocs?
Should we wear those at funerals? Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about death, baby. Let's talk about grief and mourning. Is it argumental or existential? What's it mean to me? Let's talk about death.
Hi, I'm Benny Cabal, and I'm a funeral professional.
And I'm Nicholas Cabal, a psychologist.
Hey, Nick, let's talk about death.
Let's do it.
Welcome back. Let's talk about a very interesting topic today, Benny Boy, Slim. We're going to talk about funeral attire. What do you think?
I think we need to talk about that. What's good? What do the kids be talking?
Well, here's the other thing. What's in? What's fashionable right now?
What's hip?
I always see the
dipping?
skinny ties versus the thick ties,
let's
bow ties.
Okay.
You got the little what do you call that? The tie clip and the tie pin, the tie slash.
Before we get into the professional, what he should wear, okay? Or she should wear.
Sounds
sorry.
good. Yep.
Let's actually talk about what I've been seeing at funerals and
All right,
visitations first.
hit me.
Okay. So let's go back. Okay.
Let's go
The traditional way to do a funeral was or wake back in the olden.
Mhm.
You wear your Sunday best, right? And
Well, Sunday best. For listeners
sorry.
out there that
Sorry.
don't understand what Sunday best is.
church attire, but you wear the best clothes
Church
that
attire.
you own, right? So you would have shirt and tie, really your best blazer, your best hat, right? Gentleman's hat, your best bow tie, anything at that era you would wear, right? Basically, you are showing in the eyes of the funeral, you are showing respect to the deceased and to the deceased family by dressing, taking time to comb your hair, do that. Now, even since I've started, which Doc, we parked cars, 15, 20 years ago, something like that, something ridiculous like that, probably 15 years ago, more than that.
Yeah, we're close to 20, dude.
So we've been doing this a
20
while,
years.
and I remember that the first couple things that I've noticed, and some of this is attire, some of it's not, but I think it all goes together. Fashion, right? It's the whole thing. Every car that was in the procession was cleaned, right? It was washed.
Waxed.
I wouldn't go that far because
I've
we have some pretty bad winters, but I'm just saying they were washed. Like you didn't have any dirt on them unless like literally from them driving to the funeral.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I've noticed that has very much changed. People don't go to the car wash anymore or
They do. They just don't do it in
as
preparation.
for funeral. The other thing that I noticed was girls used to be in
Women
used to be in full dresses, tights, the patent leather shoes, hair done up to the nines. You have the overcoat, blah, blah, blah. Men were in suits.
Well, and women were in black.
Yes, that's another thing. Women were in black or a dark color.
Yeah, whatever dark
Navy,
they had.
yeah, etc. They weren't wearing white to any funeral. And then the other thing for men were in suits. Men were always in suits. And then also young children were either in dresses or in suits when they would come with
Or
their family.
suspenders, button-up
cetera.
shirt, bow tie. Yeah.
Now what I'm noticing is I'm not saying all, there are certain people that still wear suits, including us, the funeral directors. But as in everybody else, I'm seeing jeans and like either those like polo shirts, maybe tucked in, maybe not, or button-ups.
Yeah, almost like a business casual.
Yeah, no tie anymore. Ties are not big right now in the funerals. And then from that would be the most. Then they go down to ripped jeans and whatever, juicy pants.
You know what? I'm not gonna lie though. Being living above the funeral home, I will say I still see a lot of. I know you said jeans, but I do see a lot of dress slacks with the men. I see a lot of khakis.
Oh yeah, khakis or like the navy.
Well, and that's what I'm
Dockers.
saying. That to me is business casual. The jeans is kind of coming more into business casual, and I wonder if that has to do with COVID and the lockdown. But like, I'm still seeing a lot of. Usually, I see polos. It's usually the 3-buttoner. It's
Well-
not the full button down.
My question to you on this. Now I see this both ways, and because of us being generational kids of funeral directors, there is this old-fashioned feel that you dress to respect the dead in the family. Here's my question on that, Doc. Are you offending certain people if you aren't dressed in their mind's eye? Correct. So like we're talking the main family, right?
So let me tell you something. So
I'm
for,
not
no, for a lot of listeners out there, before I was a psychologist, I actually was an insurance agent, which I know that's crazy to think about. Me calling you up, oh, by the way, this is Nicholas Cabal. Let's talk about your car insurance.
how's
But
your
here-
umbrella on your home?
Here's the interesting thing. I went through a lot of classes for that, a lot of sales classes for that. I was very blessed to be in the agency that I was. They sent me out for a lot of trainings, which really ultimately ended helping me really tremendously in the psychology field. But what was fascinating was one of the things they talked about was like, if you're going to go pitch to a farmer, right, you don't want to come in like a suit and tie, right? Because the problem is that for most of them, again, you're trying to gain trust. You're trying to have people respect. There you go. That's a better word. Respect you. And the problem is if you come up with your brand spanking new suit and your city car, your city folk,
Your Armani
they're gonna tune you out right away. Because they think you're just there to steal their money. So to taking that to the funeral, right? I do think that there is I think that most people, if you showed up in a suit, I think most people take that as a respect thing. Like,
Okay.
that's how you were raised. That's how you were, However, do I think that some people take it maybe offensive? Maybe. It wouldn't surprise me. If you're dealing with, the salt of the earth, right? The people that never really were, they were maybe poor to very low middle class, right? They don't
know any different.
They,
right?
I mean,
Or they don't have the means for anything
I can tell you a lot of people that never learned how to tie a tie,
Right. I
Right,
I
and-
tie their tie when they come in.
and
So
they
I
come
know-
in,
yeah.
or they get the clip-ons or whatever. And again,
The
there's
zipper.
no disrespect to that. They're trying to show
Yeah,
show up
ab-
appropriately dressed.
absolutely.
But I also think that, I think this is a thing that, again, we don't talk about. We don't think about. We just show up, right? And I think that's what we're also seeing in today's society is a lot of people can't take the time off to do anything anymore because of work. So in my lunch break, I'm going to shoot over to, I'm
Right,
going
and
to take
they
my
come
hour
in-
lunch break and shoot over
They
to the
come
funeral.
in their scrubs.
And
they
they're
come in,
showing up as, and again, to me,
But that's-
showing up is a sign of respect.
I agree with that, and I agree with that, and I obviously this is not me judging. This is just what I'm hearing from not only people that come into the funeral home, but also from other funeral directors. Right.
Right.
So, and what I'm interested is, I have had a lot of the families that I serve. They'll say, "Oh, I was so embarrassed by my grandson who came in with whatever baggy pants on and was a pallbearer." Because that comes. This is where maybe me and you have been a little bit, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but maybe we have been a little bit christened with the old generation feel, because there is, like, if you're accepting to be a godfather, or if you're accepting to be a best man, or if you're accepting to be a pallbearer, right? These are huge. Like, you don't just. Some people don't ever make those, cuts. You know what I mean? When you get asked, I feel, this is subjectively, Ben, not you. You're wrong if you don't feel this way. I feel this way. I feel like you've been asked to do something specific, special, right? You should be dressed for the occasion.
Well,
of
I'm
something
gonna
special.
stop you right there and challenge you on: were you asked or were you told?
Well, I would hope you were asked.
That's an assumption. We're assuming that nephew was asked, or was he told, "Hey, you're doing this"? That was your grandfather. You know what I mean?
I will say this: for most part, I have seen asking because I'll say I'm going to ask Jerry, John, all the grandkids.
I'm just saying sometimes,
but I have heard the grandsons will be doing it.
Yeah, so I think
yeah.
this is a big thing. I'm going to bring psychology into here right now, and I think this is a thing that can be spread across all aspects of life. We have to be careful with our assumptions.
No, but we're also human, right? So we have them.
Right, but I'm just saying,
This is
the listeners out there,
this
just be careful.
conversation is for conversation's sake,
Okay,
right?
right.
Attire.
So take that psychology hat off, and I'm going to look at you and say, I think that, in my opinion, what you're asking, I do feel like it's disrespectful if you don't make an effort.
Okay, that's the key, right?
Make an effort. The people that show, and again, don't get me wrong. Some of these people have to. Some of these people have to.
We are not calling. We are not judging.
No.
We were bringing this up because these are
No.
the conversations that we hear in our
This
profession.
goes back to a previous episode. We were talking about how good of carpet cleaners we become, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is because some people will show up with the muddiest boots or the dirtiest shoes,
man.
and to again, like I said, if you didn't know, that's one thing.
Okay.
But like when you're literally leaving a trail around the funeral home, and I mean that, a trail, like where we at the end of the night are following these footsteps.
Yeah, we know where you went.
We know where you sat. We know where you. And again, like I said, if you didn't know, one thing, but to be honest with
somebody
you,
knows, Doc.
I will tell you that is the worst feeling at the end of a visitation when it's late at night and you're literally cleaning up the funeral home and you go, "Oh no."
Can we agree at
Oh,
least?
no.
Can we at least agree? Whatever shoes or boots or whatever you wear,
Just clean them up. Clean them up.
Make sure that you're not treading sludge into the funeral home. Can we at least agree?
Now, don't get me wrong. If it's a snowy day, you can't control it.
No,
right?
Well, but here's the thing with snow. Most people know when you get up, you got that door. We have those like
Doormats.
scratchy
Door
things,
mats,
right?
yep.
So they do the skiff.
Oh yeah,
I'm not talking
little shake off.
I'm not talking one or two salt.
Oh,
salt
that is a pain in the butt during winter.
I'm talking about you definitely just walked. You just went. You know what?
You purposely puddle jumped.
You were like, hey, before I go to the funeral, I'm going to go to the dirtiest field. I just got done mudding.
Right.
And
I had to get my mudding
for
in.
all of you city folk, mudding is
city
when,
folk.
and Doc and I don't do this, never have, but apparently you get your biggest truck with your cherry bombs.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I would do this, but I wouldn't do it coming into a funeral.
And then you go to your farm, and then you do wheelies and 180s
figure
and
eights
donuts
out in the mud.
Yeah. And then you come into a funeral home with your dirty boots and you walk around.
And again, don't get me wrong. Like if that's your thing, that's awesome. Just
bring another pair of boots,
or just leave your boots at the door.
100%.
I mean, walk around in your socks. You know what I mean? Like again, there is to be honest with you, nobody. I mean, you might get looked at a little weird, but like, no funeral director is going to give you crap because you are knowing that you have really dirty boots, and you're like, I don't want to mess up. It's to me, it's more like etiquette, right?
Absolutely.
It's etiquette to know that at the end of the day, somebody's going to have to clean this up.
Well, in some cultures, you dress to the nines.
Oh yeah.
You come in.
Well, think about weddings, right? So we talk about funerals, right? And we talk about the etiquette or the dress code at funerals, but I see people dress up more
for
at weddings
yes.
than I do for
I will agree
funerals,
with that.
which is interesting.
Does that go back to what we were saying and how America views funerals comparably to, oh, this is just something we got to get over?
Well,
does that say something? I mean, I think it does. I think it does. I think it says what's more important to time, right?
Well, and it's an interesting concept to think about these people that and again, there's no judgment
we
here.
talking sludge boots or we talking
sludge boots? Sludge boots.
No,
sludge
I think
boots.
He or she is in a different
he
category.
Or she or they are in a different category, but like sludge boots, right? The problem is like that's probably how he wants to be viewed at his funeral.
Sludge boots.
He probably you know what? If I got sludge on them, that's the way that I was.
I'm a working man. How do you just say?
I'm a hauler, and
I'm a hauler.
I haul. I
Okay,
haul
so,
things.
so let's switch this around. So we talked about the people. Let's talk about you and I, right? We're both
The professional.
We're both in very, very respected,
Right.
high
High education.
and both of us had colleges that had a requirement that we were supposed to. Now we're going to talk about this first because this is funny. I had one, and I know you had one because we talked about it.
Graduate school, I absolutely had a dress code.
So
But
in
go ahead, talk about yours
in
first.
mortuary science,
Yep.
we were told that the second we walked into Wayne State, we were representing Wayne State in the mortuary science.
Yeah.
Because we are taking care of the dead, we have more. There's more expectations and values placed on us because of that. So we were told we had to wear nice clothes. It didn't have to be suits because that would be just nuts. But kind of also, how cool would that have been if your funeral home? I'm sure the old mortuary science, but we were told we had to wear nice clothes.
You had to be presentable.
We couldn't look like we just rolled out of bed.
Ragamuffins.
Okay. I will say that lasted for about 3 months. Now, every time we had to go someplace, this was another interesting too, going back to the old guard. Anytime we went on a field trip, we had to be in suits or we had to be in skirts or blah, 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 blah. Like we had to be in, and I'm going to say the traditional funeral director clothes, which is for men it's suits, for women it's either suits or it's skirts, the long skirts and a blouse, right? The business casual, not business casual, business attire.
The businesswoman.
Mm-hmm. So what I thought was interesting, and that lasted about a month or two in the classroom, and then it kind of let them fizzle. Now you had a similar situation too, right?
So this is funny because I honestly was the only one that knew that there was a dress code. Maybe because I
was it in the handbook?
Born and bred in the Catholic Church, and we're all about rules. But like, it was so funny to me because I showed up, and the only thing that honestly I was out of dress code, but it wasn't out of dress code because it wasn't in the dress code, that I wore a hat. I wore a ball cap because technically they had nothing. They had
roof under a roof.
They had nothing. They had nothing about. And again, maybe that was my part to rebel. Like,
I see.
You didn't put
you found the loophole.
There was a loophole, and again, like I came in every day with dress slacks on, a belt. I had shoes, like nice shoes, like either leather black or leather brown, and then I had a button-up shirt every day. Either that or no, it was a button-up every day. I didn't tuck in, but that was not in the dress code.
Okay.
But like I literally came in every day like that, dress, and followed the dress code.
What was things that you couldn't wear in the dress code?
It literally said like you had to wear dress slacks and stuff like that. And I would walk in and it would bother me because I would look around and a lot of my colleagues would, there was some that for the most part followed the dress code, but there was a lot of them that would come in their, breakaway, Adidas pants,
yoga
or shorts, or I had a lot of women in my class that would wear those yoga pants, which
I get you.
They're very
revealing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're not business appropriate.
Fit forming.
They're very fit forming. And I just wondered because, I was like, I'll never forget. I like looked around the room. I'm like, you guys know that there's a dress code, right? And they're like, no. And nobody ever got talked to. And I thought that was interesting. I thought maybe at least one professor would be like, okay, come on, people here.
Well, you were also in a humanistic school, right?
Right, which is very accepting.
They were saying,
if
let's see what bozo actually follows.
Yeah, and again, it also might have been a practice to find out who we were as people. But like the thing that and again, maybe that
there you go.
That's why I got red flagged right away with that. Though, here comes the ball. Here comes the ballpark kid,
the grief dude.
The grief dude who's wearing Detroit Tigers hats every day.
Go
Tigs or Lions or Red Wings. Those were my go-tos. But like it amazed me that we are coming to, and again, that was when I was going through school, so I know that I go and walk my little nugget daughter to school, and there's so many kids that are coming out in their pajama pants and stuff like that, and like yes, it's absolutely how you're raised. We were raised, and I know my parents, their generation was a whole different ball game, and their parents were even tougher, right? So like, don't get me wrong, I try desperately not to judge, because who knows what happened that day. They might have spilled coffee on the way there and had to throw on something because that's the only thing they had in their car, right? We don't know. But the sludge boot
Okay, going
please
back,
clean up your boots.
I think if you learned anything from this episode today, don't be the sludge boot guy. But anyways, I want to talk a little bit more about, like, actually now that we're practicing, now that we're out in the field, right?
Yep.
So I've had a lot of conversations with my colleagues, and I have had the opportunity to talk with a lot of the old guard, right? They've been funeral directors for over 30 years. Been doing this from the 80s, 70s, maybe even 60s on. I will say what I think is very interesting is they are very, very, very hard to understanding that funeral directors don't wear suits. Their way of doing it, which I thought was really interesting, is there's two ways that I find the old guard get away with not wearing the full old suit.
Got it.
One is crazy socks. So they wear black suits, everything like you would think of a funeral director, but they wear crazy socks. Like that's their way of like, I'm going to be a rebel.
Look! Oh, I bent over.
Oh,
you can
there's
see
cats
my...
on my, or there's a pizzas on it. Okay,
Yeah, right.
The second way is they do what like the sportscasters do. So it's a full suit, but then they'll be wearing Nikes.
Mm.
And
Okay.
I found that was interesting. And I think, and they say, okay, and I don't know how truthful this is. It's for my feet.
My sciatic,
it's because I'm on my feet all day, and this is the only way.
Which, I mean, it makes sense.
So going back, what ultimately the real question is, Doc, do you think subjectively? I'm telling you to take off your doc hat for a second. I'm talking Nicholas Capal, not Dr. Nicholas Capal, but Nicholas Capal.
Yep.
Do you think there should be a dress code in the funeral home? As in the employees and the people coming in.
I don't think you're ever going to get the people coming in to follow anything.
It doesn't. I'm not saying should they follow. I'm saying, do you think there should be?
I think so. But again, I would say it's more about just being presentable, making an effort.
Would you be upset to go into a funeral home and talk to a funeral director while he was on job, not when he's like mowing the lawn, without a suit on?
It wouldn't bother me at all.
Okay, now what if he was conducting a funeral without a suit on?
If he looked,
or she, I'm sorry,
he or she or they looked presentable, that would be a different story. So if they did, so again, we're talking suits, but what if they had a button-up shirt, maybe one button loose, but a beautiful white, bright white shirt underneath, right? Beautiful white, bright
that
shirt.
Hanes tagless,
dress slacks, dress shoes. They did.
You
their
would have
hair.
no problem with that.
No,
being especially a professional.
They would have to have a name tag so I would know who they were.
Okay,
because I think that's one of the biggest parts that a lot of funeral directors still wear suits. It sets them apart.
I'm going to double that. I'm going
to double down.
I think going back to what you said is a very important fact. You made the comment when you were a insurance agent that you dress the part, right? You dress for your client. I have been asked to wear jeans and tiger shirts to a funeral. I personally, as a funeral director, agree with doing that. If a family asks me specifically to wear something, I think I should do that.
I feel like I would be like the old timers, and I would make it work both ways.
You'd wear the tiger,
like I'd wear the tiger shirt. No,
suit?
I'd wear a bright tiger shirt under a white shirt so you could see it.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean? Like you're kind of doing both, and that's
like
a
Superman
nod,
under Clark
to me.
Kent's.
That's a nod to them, and it's a nod to my professionality.
Yeah, but is that silly?
I mean, that's up to you. I'm saying subjectively, that's what I would do.
I get it.
All right, let's get to some Q&As.
Q&A, everyone loves that Q&A.
Q&A, gotta get me. Q&A.
I love questions. I love answers.
Give me those questions. Give me those
please?
answers. All right, this one's called Scattering Ashes in the Old California. It's been almost a year since my husband died, and my daughter and I are ready to scatter his ashes. We're debating where. Our house and his mother's property are out. I know he would love to be scattered in a garden or a park. What do I have to do this? Permits, cost. I have no experience with this. Benny, I'm going to let you handle this one.
Okay, first things first. We're talking California. Best thing you can do, easiest thing you can do, call up your local funeral director. He will know exactly, or she will know, or they will know exactly what to do, where to go. In some states, you can do basically anything and everything, and it's no problem. You could scatter, and I mean, obviously not on somebody else's property because that's their property. But other than that, if you went to a national park in some states or whatnot, they probably are okay with it, or I'm not saying okay with it, but you won't get in trouble for it. I will say there are some states, like the very state that I live in, Michigan, where there is only certain legal things you can do with ashes. You can do anything you want on your own property. You can put them in your closet. You can scatter them on your lawn. It's your property. You can do whatever you want. As in cemeteries, a lot of cemeteries will allow you to scatter in certain areas or bury in certain areas, which niche them in a mausoleum, which is to put them in a mausoleum in a wall, if you get my drift. But you have to specifically ask that cemetery. Some cemeteries are going to want certain things done, certain times, et cetera, et cetera. Other cemeteries might have a place where anybody can go and do it, but that's the specific place, or a pond in a cemetery. My best answer to you: call up your local funeral director, and if they don't have the answer, call another funeral home, because somebody will have that answer for you. And if they're a good funeral director, even if they don't have the answer, they will take your number and they will call you back with the answer if they don't know it right off the hand. But talk to your local funeral director, talk to your local cemetery, a sexton who is in control of a cemetery. And then, as in permits, a lot of times cemeteries might want to have a permit on file, which you can yet again get from whatever funeral home you used or wherever you used for that cremation. They will have to have a permit in a lot of these states, if not all of them. As for costs, that just depends. Some cemeteries, like I said, will allow you to do it for free in specific areas, depending on the situation too. Others, there will be a cost specifically for that. Most of the time, it's obviously a lot less because it's a lot less intrusive. But you have to call your local cemetery. So yet again, either call your local cemetery or sexton, or if it's in a specific township or county, call them. They will let you know who to contact. As in any funeral director, just call any local funeral director and they will let you know. A sexton, for anybody who doesn't know, would be the layman's term, a grave digger, the one that's in charge of actually taking care of opening graves, plotting them. That's what a sexton is. That's your term for the day, Doc.
Okay, this is the second question, Benny Boy.
Okay.
Am I a bad person? That is the title. I am 13, and I realized the other day I have been to more funerals than most. Most notably, my great-grandma, 2 of my grandmas, and my grandpa. I love them all a lot and frequently saw them, at least once a week, but I never really mourned like people talked about. I was sad, but I didn't really cry, and after a couple days, I just kind of moved on. I don't feel the pain or sadness of it looking back. It just kind of just happened. Does that make me a bad person?
Okay, so my first thought is you actually asking the question, am I a bad person, is a very good it's a great question, because I think it talks about you're young, right? I'm 13. You're very young, and that's very bright and wide-eyed for asking a question like that, because it is, right? You see other people, and I think going back to it, if you're out there listening to this, is everybody grieves differently. And in those specific deaths to you, they might be okay that they've moved on. You had your experience with them, you love them, you miss them, but you have accepted at this point their death. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, realize that doesn't mean that you'll be in the same spot 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You might have an interesting situation where one of these deaths come back and really impact you some way, or maybe you never thought about something. So honestly, you're definitely not a bad person. That you are very, very. There's so many people out there that feel the same way and ask the same question all the time to not only Doc but to myself in the funeral home. Should I have grieved more? What's going on? Why am I not grieving right? You're grieving the way you need to grieve. And I think what's more importantly is that you're thinking about that. And that's huge. Like you're actually contemplating your own ways of how you deal with grief. Doc, your thoughts?
Well, first things first, being 13 and going through that much grief, that's a lot. It wouldn't surprise me if there is some shock going on, which in layman terms, basically saying that there's just so much emotion that it's hard to comprehend any of it. So that could be going on. But the thing I wanted to talk about is this dichotomous thinking of bad versus good, right? I think it's interesting that we as human beings, we get caught up in this idea that it must be this way or it must be this way, right? I just think we're humans. I don't think we're bad or good. I think we're just humans, right? And I think we make choices, and I think depending on how you behave after those choices is what makes you who you are, right? So I'd be careful with first, like Benny was talking about, this idea that you already said, questioning, am I a bad person? I think you're just a human, right? And just like anything else, I think every human deals with certain things differently. Just because you didn't cry or that you didn't, lay in your bed for multiple weeks or days or months with the grief symptomology doesn't necessarily mean that you're not grieving in your own way. Maybe part of your grieving is that, you reminisce or you think, or you might listen to music that cheers you up, or whatever the case may be. I don't find that you are bad or good depending on how you grieve. I think it's just how you grieve. So to me, to answer the question, absolutely, you are not a bad person. And keep looking into it. I always tell my clients to try to look at like being a scientist, right? The more that we judge, the more power we give a feeling. So if it's a negative feeling, we're giving it more power, right? Instead of judging, let's just be curious. Like, why don't I, why didn't I cry? Or why, not saying that it's a bad that you didn't cry, but just curious. Well, maybe there was other things going on in your life at that moment. You're 13, right? There's a lot of stuff going on at school, I would imagine. If you're playing sports, there's a lot going on there. So again, slow down, don't judge, and just, keep looking and being curious about yourself. Keep learning about yourself.
Well, and yet again, thank you so much for your questions. Please feel free to keep sending us your questions on our email at letstalkaboutdeathpod@gmail.com. If you are struggling and you are in need of a good app on your phone that you can access at any time, you can go get that GriefWorks app. It's absolutely wonderful. It has a lot of professionals and a lot of good things. You can head to illumapps.com/LTAD for 15% off, and we will leave the link underneath to help you. It's a great resource, and it'll help you find support for your grief. As always, send us your loves, your reviews, your thank yous, your stars,
your questions, your emails, all that stuff. Send it our way.
Yeah, and please, like, if anybody that you know is dealing with grief, please send them a link to our pod, because I'm sure they could really get a lot out of it. And as always, Doctor, if you are not talking about death,
you are not living. Thank you so much.